You think you've made it. You worked hard, saved responsibly, and finally crossed the invisible finish line called retirement. The world tells you to relax, to enjoy your golden years, to finally breathe. But no one tells you the truth, that after 70, the rules of the financial game change. And if you're not careful, the very habits that once protected you could start bleeding you dry. Welcome to the silent side of aging, where financial traps don't look like traps at all. They look like love, like loyalty, like routine, like comfort. And by the time you notice what's missing, it's not just dollars, it's dignity, it's control, it's sleep at night. This isn't fear-mongering, this is reality. And the sooner you know the terrain, the safer you'll walk it. Because whether you're 70 now or just planning ahead, these hidden dangers are real. And in this journey, ignorance is not bliss, it's expensive. So today, we'll walk through 6 of the most common, most deceptive money traps seniors fall into, some out of love, others out of habit, and a few out of fear. We'll break down not only how they happen, but how to spot the warning signs and reclaim your financial footing before it's too late. Because no one deserves to outlive their money or their peace of mind. Let's start with one that creeps in quietly, disguised as a doctor's appointment. It starts off innocently enough. A routine checkup here, a new pair of glasses there, maybe a dental cleaning or a refill on your arthritis meds. Nothing major until suddenly, your mailbox becomes a revolving door of unexpected copays, billing, statements, and insurance letters that feel written in a foreign language. This is the first trap, underestimating healthcare costs after 70. The danger lies not in any single expense, but in the speed and frequency with which they accumulate. People assume Medicare is a safety net, and it is to a point. But it's full of holes. Vision, dental, hearing aids, in-home care, those aren't covered the way most think. And when those gaps show up, they show up big. The real issue is that your health doesn't just decline in a straight line. It declines in spikes. One diagnosis can lead to 5 follow-up visits, 3 medications, a physical therapy regimen, and suddenly you're down thousands quietly. Consider Edna, 78, who was always in good shape. She walked daily, cooked her own meals, never smoked. But after a minor fall in her kitchen, her routine recovery became a months-long rotation of physical therapy, transportation costs, medication, changes, and eventually hiring a part-time aide to help around the house. Medicare covered some but not all. The out-of-pocket damage? Over $11,000 in less than a year. It wasn't reckless spending. It was biology. And it blindsided her. The real tragedy is emotional, not financial. When a person who once prided themselves on independence suddenly has to choose between filling a prescription or paying their heating bill, something deeper than the bank balance suffers. Pride erodes, confidence falters, and often silence follows. Many older adults begin hiding their money stress from family, from doctors, from themselves. They skip appointments not because they feel better, but because they can't afford the uncertainty. And they pretend they're fine right up until they're not. So what do? First, accept that medical expenses will rise. That's not pessimism, it's preparation. Don't build a retirement plan around the assumption of stability. Build it to withstand disruption. Revisit your insurance. Look into Medicare Advantage or supplement plans and understand what they don't cover. Create a separate health emergency fund, even a small one. Talk openly with family about long-term care planning before the need arises. You won't avoid every curveball, but you'll see them coming. The trap isn't just in the costs, it's in the denial, but awareness gives you choices. And choices protect your future. Now let's talk about something more emotional than numerical, though it drains both. The second trap after 70 isn't in your expenses. It's in your generosity. Specifically, supporting adult children financially long after they should be standing on their own. This one sneaks in through the heart. It starts with a small loan, a few hundred to help with rent, a co-signed car payment, a sudden need after a divorce. And because you're a parent, you say yes. Not just because you love them, but because you remember how hard it was to get started in life. You want to help. That instinct never goes away. But what no one tells you is that financial support past a certain point doesn't just strain your wallet, it strains the relationship. And it can compromise your own future in ways that feel irreversible. You see, after 70, every dollar matters more than it used to. Your earning window is behind you. What you've saved is what you've got. But your kids? They still have options. Income potential. Recovery time. When you drain your nest egg to support a 40-year-old who still hasn't figured things out, you're not just being generous, you're putting your own health, housing, and long-term care at risk. And here's the truth. In many cases, the support goes on for far longer than anyone expected. What was temporary becomes indefinite. What was just this once becomes the new normal. Let me tell you about Ron and Marlene. Both in their early 70s. Their son Mark moved back in after a job layoff. They thought it'd be for a few months. He brought his dog. Then his girlfriend. They paid for groceries, covered his phone bill, let him use their car. 5 years later, their once retirement fund had been tapped repeatedly to cover Mark's expenses, a loan default, and even a failed business he started from their basement. Ron finally had to sell his motorcycle to cover property taxes. Marlene stopped her book club to save gas money. Neither told their friends. They were too embarrassed. And it's not that Mark didn't appreciate their help. But appreciation doesn't replace income. And dependence rarely self-corrects. Here's the kicker: if they hadn't helped so much, Mark might have found his footing faster, because necessity forces growth. But soft landings often delay it. So how do you know when help becomes harm? Simple: when your own standard of living begins to shrink to accommodate someone else's, when you skip dental appointments or forgo medication to float your child another loan. Something is off. That's not love, it's a sacrifice with no boundaries. Setting limits isn't selfish, it's survival. And more often than not, your kids will understand. If they don't, that's not on you. Your job as a parent doesn't end with endless rescue missions. It ends with teaching resilience, even if that means stepping back and saying, I can't fund your adulthood. I need to protect mine. Of all the symbols of success, one stands taller than the rest: your home. The house you raised your family in, where your kids took their first steps, where holidays filled every room with laughter and warmth. For many, that house becomes sacred. But what if I told you that after 70, your beloved home could quietly become a financial trap? The third danger we face as we age is holding on to a house that's too expensive or too demanding to maintain. And it doesn't announce itself with one big moment. No, it sneaks in through the leaky roof you ignore for now. The rising property taxes you promised to reassess next year. The cracked walkway you learned to step around rather than fix. What starts as sentimental attachment gradually turns into a burden that drains your money, time, and energy. The truth is, Houses age just like we do. And they rarely age gracefully. Things that used to be weekend chores become daunting undertakings. Climbing ladders to clean gutters? Too risky. Shoveling snow from the driveway? Too painful. Managing insurance claims, surprise repairs, pest control, vehicle maintenance. It doesn't just cost money. It costs strength. It costs peace of mind. And it slowly erodes the freedom your retirement was supposed to bring. Let's take Helen and Raymond, both in their late 70s. Their two-story colonial had been in the family for 35 years. They loved it fiercely until the water heater exploded. The upstairs bathroom needed remodeling after a fall, and a windstorm ripped shingles from the roof. Suddenly, every room carried a price tag. They paid over $1,800 last year just for landscaping because Raymond's knees couldn't handle mowing anymore. And when the dishwasher broke, they waited months because the emergency fund was already depleted. The kicker? They used to feel pride coming home. Now they felt anxiety. And yet they stayed. Why? Because of the memories. Because change felt like defeat. But here's the truth no one likes to admit. Holding on isn't always a sign of strength. Sometimes it's a delay in peace. Downsizing is not giving up. It's letting go of what no longer fits your life. In many cases, selling the home and moving to something smaller, simpler, and safer isn't a downgrade. It's a breakthrough. It's trading overhead for freedom, maintenance for mobility, stress for sanity. Imagine what else you could do with the equity in your home: secure better healthcare, travel modestly, build an inheritance with clarity, or simply sleep better at night, knowing no pipe will burst without you having the means to fix it. Ask yourself this: if you didn't already live in your current house, would you buy it today? If the answer is no, that's not disloyalty, that's honesty. We outgrow spaces just like we outgrow clothes. And the sooner you recognize that, sooner you can transition into a chapter where your home works for you, not the other way around. The fourth financial trap that many people fall into after 70 doesn't come with warning sirens or big neon signs. In fact, it often arrives with a smile, a handshake, and a few smooth words like guaranteed return or risk-free investment. And just like that, you're caught in the trap of falling for too good to be true. Financial offers. Here's what makes this one so dangerous. You're not reckless. You're careful. You're conservative. But the moment you stop earning active income and start relying on a fixed budget, something shifts. You start looking for ways to stretch every dollar. You start listening more closely to people who say they can help maximize your savings. And you become the perfect target for one of the most overlooked truths in personal finance. The older you get, the more your savings make you a bullseye. Fraudsters and even some legitimate advisors know this. They know you might feel little anxious about inflation. They know that your time horizon is shorter, so the idea of faster returns sounds more appealing. They know you want safety, and they sell the illusion of it. They throw out buzzwords like asset-backed, fully insured, can't lose. They rush you with fake urgency. They smile with practiced confidence. But the moment you sign, your money is no longer yours. Let's talk about George, a 78-year-old retired engineer who prided himself on being logical. He was introduced to a private investment opportunity by a friend from church. The pitch was polished, steady. Monthly returns, low risk, backed by real estate. George put in $50,000. For 6 months, checks arrived on time. Then they didn't. The contact stopped answering. The friend said he was out of the loop. George never saw a dime again. He didn't just lose money, he lost sleep, pride, and the ability to trust his own judgment. And George's story isn't rare. It's disturbingly common. In fact, studies show that older adults lose billions each year to financial scams and unsuitable investments. And here's the worst part. Even advisors who aren't scamming, you may still be selling you products that don't make sense for your stage of life: annuities with surrender penalties, complex real estate trusts, or stock funds that tie up your money when you need flexibility the most. So how do you protect yourself? Start by refusing to make any financial decision under pressure. Real investments can wait. Scams can't. Ask the hard questions. Can I lose my principal? What are the fees? Is this FDIC insured? What's the worst case scenario? If you don't understand something fully, walk away. A confused mind should always say no. Also, loop in a second pair of eyes, someone you trust. Not because you can't handle it, but because extra clarity protects everyone. If an advisor bristles when you ask for time or outside advice, that's a red flag, not a quirk. And don't let embarrassment silence you. If you've been misled or taken advantage of, speak up. Shame protects scammers. Transparency protects others. You'd be surprised how many people in your circle are quietly dealing with the same thing. Your retirement years are not a time to gamble. They're a time to preserve, a time to hold steady, a time to protect what you've built so you can enjoy it on your terms. Big promises may sound like hope, but real security never sounds too good to be true, because it isn't. Now we come to a trap so subtle, most people don't even realize they're in it until the damage is done. And it has nothing to do with scams, generosity, or medical bills. This one hides in the rhythm of your everyday life. It's the trap of failing to adjust your spending habits after retirement. For decades, your money came in regularly. Paycheck, deposit, bonus. You earned, you spent, you saved. Even if you were careful, you lived with the psychological comfort of knowing that more income was always on the way. But after 70, that rhythm changes. You're no longer earning in the same way. Maybe you're drawing from a pension or tapping Social Security. Maybe you've got investments. But the key difference is this: the money coming in is now finite. It's a drawdown, not a deposit. And if your spending doesn't change to reflect that shift, you're not living in retirement, you're accelerating its end. Here's where it gets tricky. The spending doesn't always feel extravagant. It feels normal. That's what makes it so dangerous. It's the weekly dinner with friends, the monthly streaming subscriptions, the gifts for grandkids, the daily coffee shop run, the home upgrades. You justify because you deserve it, and you do. But the real question is, can your current spending habits sustain the lifestyle you want to maintain 10 years from now? Let's look at Linda, a 75-year-old widow who always thought of herself as frugal. She drove a paid-off car, clipped coupons, never vacationed lavishly. But over time, little habits added up. She subscribed to 6 streaming services because she didn't want to cancel the one her late husband liked. She continued to give generously to her church and local animal shelter. She bought high-end organic groceries out of habit. She didn't track any of it because it never felt excessive. But after 5 years, she noticed her savings dipping, then dipping faster. And by the time she sat down to review her accounts, she realized she'd spent nearly $25,000 more than she thought. Not on anything flashy, just comfort. Just autopilot. That's how the trap works. It hides in the quiet corners, the things you assume you've earned or deserve. And you're not wrong, you have earned peace, comfort, and dignity. But financial dignity isn't about saying yes to everything. It's about knowing what matters most and protecting it. So what can you do? Start by tracking every dollar for 60 days. No guilt, just data. You can't fix what you can't see. Then look for patterns. Are you paying for things you no longer use? Are you spending out of emotion more than need? Do certain routines cost more than they're worth? Next, redefine your budget, not as a cage, but as a compass. Aim your money toward what gives you real joy, real health, real peace. Cut what feels invisible. Reallocate what feels hollow. Let go of outdated habits that made sense when you were working, but no longer serve you now. And if you're worried that cutting back means cutting joy, remember this: peace of mind is a kind of joy. 2. The kind that helps you sleep better, breathe easier, and say yes to what truly matters. The final trap may be the most dangerous of them all, not because it costs the most money up front, but because its damage is invisible until it's irreversible. This last trap isn't about what you spend, it's about what you don't say. It's the quiet but deeply risky habit of avoiding uncomfortable money conversations. Think about it. How many people in their 70s and 80s have talked openly with their families about their will, their power of attorney, their medical directives, their passwords, their end-of-life wishes? Not nearly enough. And it's not because they don't care. It's because those conversations feel too hard, too personal, too final. But the truth is, avoiding these discussions doesn't make the discomfort go away. It just passes the burden onto someone else, usually at the worst possible moment. Here's the harsh reality. Aging doesn't give us the luxury of silence. Because silence leaves gaps, and gaps in financial clarity lead to chaos. Chaos in courtrooms, chaos between siblings, chaos at hospital bedsides when decisions need to be made and no one knows what you would have wanted. Take Frank, an 82-year-old who never liked talking money. He didn't want to upset his kids, didn't want to seem morbid, and figured his wishes were obvious. So he never shared where his documents were, never named an executor, never discussed his accounts. When he passed unexpectedly, his children were left with an emotional and logistical mess. There were bills they didn't know about, a will that hadn't been updated in 15 years, an old safe that no one could open. And in the middle of their grief, they were forced to make legal decisions, fast, expensive ones. Relationships strained. Lawyers were paid. And what could have been a peaceful goodbye turned into months of confusion and regret. But here's what many don't realize. These conversations aren't just about death. They're about life. They're about protecting your autonomy. Making sure your voice is heard, even if one day you can't speak. They're about shielding your loved ones from guilt, second-guessing, and conflict. Talking openly about money, who will manage it, where it is, what you want done with it, isn't morbid. It's an act of love. So where do you begin? Start small. Choose someone you trust. Tell them where your key documents are. Gradually, expand the discussion. Who's your power of attorney? Have you outlined your healthcare directives? Do your loved ones know how to access your accounts in an emergency? Have you spelled out your final wishes? Write it down. Store it safely. Communicate clearly. Because if you don't have a plan, someone else will be forced to guess. And guesswork almost always leads to tension, missteps, or worse, exploitation. Elder financial abuse often begins when boundaries are unclear and authority is assumed. Instead of granted and don't wait, the biggest lie we tell ourselves is, I'll get to it later. But later has a way of arriving unannounced, and when it does, the silence becomes expensive. So now that we've walked through all 6 of these hidden traps: rising healthcare costs, supporting adult children too long, clinging to a home that's quietly bleeding you, chasing too good to be true investments, spending like the paychecks still coming, and avoiding the money conversations that matter most, what do we do with it all? We pause, we reflect, and we ask the hardest question of all: am I falling into any of these traps without even realizing it? Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The biggest threat to your financial well-being after 70 isn't theft, inflation, or taxes. It's routine. It's loyalty. It's kindness that's been stretched too thin. It's the familiar behaviors you've always relied on, now working against you in silence. The real danger isn't in some catastrophic decision. It's in the slow erosion of your freedom through small, repeated choices you never questioned. And the longer those patterns go unnoticed, the more damage they do, not just to your wallet, but to your dignity, your independence, and your ability to live life on your own terms. But here's the good news. Recognizing these patterns is the first and most powerful step to reclaiming your future. And no, you don't need to overhaul your life in 1 week. You don't have to feel guilty for past mistakes or ashamed for what you didn't know. You just have to start now with eyes wide open. Maybe it means having a tough conversation with your adult child and drawing a line you should have drawn years ago. Maybe it means walking through your home with brutal honesty and asking, is this space serving me, or am I serving it? Maybe it means picking up the phone to call a financial advisor, a lawyer, or just a trusted friend to say, I need help sorting this out. Maybe it's sitting down with your own thoughts and writing, this is where my documents are. This is who I trust. This is what I want. Every small step you take toward clarity gives you back control. Every financial boundary you set reclaims part of your peace. Every hard question you finally ask yourself becomes a safeguard for the life you've earned and the legacy you'll leave behind. This isn't just about money. This is about what money protects: your freedom, your safety, your ability to say yes to joy and no to stress. You've worked for decades. You've sacrificed more than most will ever know. And now, you deserve a life that reflects that effort, not one that's quietly slipping away while you're too busy holding everyone else up. So don't be afraid to change the script. Don't be afraid to say, that was smart for who I was, but it no longer fits who I am. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's resilience. That's you, stepping into the rest of your life with power, purpose, and peace. Let this be your moment. Not of fear, but of clarity. Because the more you face now, the freer you'll feel tomorrow. Your financial future after 70 isn't set in stone. You have more control than you think, but control begins with awareness. By understanding the traps that quietly erode your independence and taking action now, you not only protect your money, you reclaim your right to live on your terms. So ask the hard questions, make the smart changes, and never apologize for protecting your peace.